And welcome back to the Performance Prescription. Matt, back with you. How have things been?
Things are good.
What do you hope to hear out of our conversation here with Mikey? Mikey's here from Boston Children's, and I think it's going to be a wide-ranging conversation. But yeah, what do you hope to hear out of it or get out of today's conversation?
Noticed the work that he's doing in recruiting for Boston Children and was, just inspired by his consistency and what he's doing. So I'm going to go really, really practical in some parts of this episode. And jumping ahead, I'm excited about learning how to get a job at Boston Children's Hospital. Not that I'm looking for a new job, but if I were, what do I need to do to get a job at Boston Children's? Because I love the work that they're doing.
Fantastic. All right, well, perfect time to welcome Mikey onto the show. Hey, glad you're here with us.
Hi, thank you for having me. And yeah, we had snow yesterday morning. I'm just outside of Boston, and we had snow, and now it's a little bit brighter. So hopefully it stays that way. I just got a grill, so I'm looking forward to using that in the near future if the sun stays out. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us just a little bit about your background and how you got into healthcare recruiting?
Yeah. Yes, I have an interesting background. So I've been in recruiting, specifically sourcing. I've always been a strict sourcer versus recruiter or any of that. So I've been a sourcer for about 12 years now. I studied film and creative writing in college, which was a lot of fun. But as you can imagine, out of college, there's not a whole lot for you. So about 2 years out of college, just bounced around to different jobs, and then through an old roommate, found my way into sourcing. And I've done it for 12 years now, remote, on site, a little bit of everything. I've done it for a lot of manufacturing, pharmaceuticals and biotech, healthcare currently, inking, a little bit of everything. And yeah, I have just been doing the sourcing thing for 12 years, which I really like. There's a big difference between sourcing and recruiting in their own roles. I really like sourcing because I like the kind of heads down research part, finding things on the deep depths of the internet. I like the marketing parts and that. And yeah, just really enjoyed this the career for a little over a decade.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm glad for a little bit of that context. Can you go a little bit more into depth on the difference between, sourcing versus recruiting? I tend to lump them together, but that's not my specialties. What's the difference between a sourcer and a recruiter? I know you just mentioned a little bit about the research and analytics, but tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. So I'd say every company I've worked at defines it a little bit differently or the handoff a little bit differently. I'll tell you how I see it, how I kind of think it should be. So you do have full cycle recruiters, full desk recruiters, they call them, who's sourcing, recruiting, coordinating, doing all of that. I've mostly worked at companies where that's broken out: sourcers, recruiters, coordinators. So coordinators are the ones who are going to be scheduling the interviews with the candidate and the hiring team. The hiring team is pretty busy, so they're helping set that up. And then for sourcers, we help on either hard to fill recs that have been open for a while and they need help on them, or it's a new role opening that they know in the past has been a challenge and they're going to need us. Or we also help on evergreen roles, which are roles that are always open. So in the past, personal bankers; right now, patient experience rep, front office. So what we do as sourcers is we find the people who aren't actively applying. They're not actively showing themselves as, hey, I'm looking for a role or trying to get in the door of the company. So a recruiter is going to deal more with active applicants, referrals, internals, and things like that. Sourcers go out and find people and try to sell them into the role and the company. We have them apply to the role, and then that's kind of the handoff for the recruiter, is then going to take them from there to more the end of the step. So I've never made an offer before. I don't do a lot with salary negotiations or anything. I do that first part of selling and getting them in the door. I do keep in touch with them throughout the process. If they're not hearing back or anything, if the recruiter can't get through to them, I can do some follow-ups. But yeah, really as a sourcer, we're doing a lot of the job postings and advertising. We're finding new places to post, new places to find candidates, of course, using Indeed and LinkedIn. A lot of Google, finding things on there. And we use a thing called Boolean, which is the kind of internet language we use, named after George Boole. And it's kind of a way to find things a little bit quicker and easier on the internet, which is really fun.
Awesome. Thanks for that context and that background. Very, very helpful and obviously very, very important distinction. So thanks for that. And so as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I'm a big fan of Boston Children's Hospital. Obviously, Boston Children's has a great reputation, around the country and around the world. So can you just tell us briefly what what are some of the good things that are going on at Boston Children's currently?
Yeah, yeah. So I joined here about a year ago. It was a year at the end of January, and I've worked for a lot of big companies before. And but it's interesting. This is the first time I've ever worked for a company where I didn't have to sell our product or tell people who we were or what we did or anything like that. Since I've started here, I've had people reach out to me, not for even a job, just to tell me I went there as a kid and it helped me so much, or I bring my kids there. When I reach out to people about roles, they always have some kind of story and history. So, yeah, I mean, Boston Children's, we're always growing, we're always hiring. Like a lot of companies, we promote from within. So, some people move up and then we need to hire their backfill. Sometimes we're just hiring extra people. We always have the evergreen roles, the roles that are always hiring here, and then more just some kind of roles we're trying to hire and staff up for the hospitals. And yeah, it's been an exciting year so far for me here.
So the question I have, and I think a lot of people have and are afraid to ask, what does it take to get hired at Boston Children's? So obviously you're sourcing, you're going out on the internet looking for people. So either from that perspective or for a job seeker just come and, knock on the, electronic front door, what does it take to get hired there?
So if you're listening to this and you're not in healthcare or don't live near Boston, I would say the biggest things today's market, referrals are the biggest way to get in the door anywhere. So people know that. I think sometimes they don't know exactly how to find those referrals. So hop on the Boston Children's LinkedIn page and see which one of your first connections work here. See what your alumni work here and reach out to them and see if they can help you get in the door. 10 years ago, referrals were a lot different. You could have maybe met me through my cousin and you say, "Hey, I want to get in the door at your company. Can you refer me?" Referrals these days are much stricter and for good reason. Really, to get in the door here, any company with referrals, you want somebody who's worked with you in some capacity, knows your work ethic. So whether that was maybe in school or your previous job or through the community, getting somebody to refer you through that is kind of the best way. Another way to get in the door at a company can be applying early, within the first 24 hours that a role is open. That's a big piece of advice I give. And making sure you meet all the requirements. That's the big thing these days. So, if you see a role that's looking for 5 years of leadership, make sure you have that 5 years of leadership. If it's a role that has, a requirement of healthcare, make sure you're coming from healthcare. If you see that as a nice to have healthcare, it's not a requirement, but it's definitely something that can help. So meeting all the requirements is the biggest thing. The preferred things, if you can meet some of those, that's a big selling point too. And then really to kind of walk through, I guess, the process, apply for the role, update not just your cover letter for each job, but your resume. Keep an eye on your email and your spam and junk, because those will be when recruiters reach out to you to get you in the door. And then once you start interviewing with the company, the big thing is show passion, show that you know the company, the history, ask a lot of questions. Hiring managers will sometimes say they didn't seem too interested, so ask questions. Ask why they joined the company, what they like, what the role's really looking for. And those are the biggest things you can do throughout the process, is just really show that passion and interest. And yeah, we're always hiring here too. I mean, that's the nice thing too. If you apply for one role and you don't hear back, don't get discouraged. That doesn't mean, hey, we don't want this person for anything. It just means you might have applied after we made an offer. You might have applied and there was somebody else who had a slightly stronger background. But my big encouragement is, once you've applied for one role at a company, it's real quick and easy to apply to more. So apply to 2 or 3 at a time. There's different hiring managers looking for different things. So don't be discouraged, and, apply to a few roles that fit your background and what you're looking for.
That's really great advice, Mikey. And I really, what you said about passion really resonates with me, that in, across the, job market, but in healthcare, hospitals, health systems are looking for passionate, committed, dedicated people. Mikey, when we spoke a few weeks ago, you talked a little bit about the talent community that you're building. Tell me a little bit about what that entails, how that's helping you with your sourcing, and how that might help me as a job seeker.
Yeah, talent communities are great. So here's how I kind of explain it to people. So you go shopping at Target and online. You buy something that kind of put you in that talent community. Maybe you say, let me know when you have socks on sale and video games, and Target's going to let you know those two things, and you'll be notified. A talent community with a company is the same thing. So, say you are happily employed now, but you're like, I would love to get into Boston Children's in the future, or say you want to work for any company, join their talent community today. You will get all of the emails for the rest of your career as long as you don't hit that unsubscribe button. That's the biggest thing. As long as you are still getting the emails, some will be relevant, some won't be. But basically, we have a talent community at Boston Children's of over 100,000 people. And that includes people we met at career fairs who joined. That includes previous applicants. That includes people who, I reach out to people, and if they say, I'm not interested right now, I never am going to say, okay, cool, have a good one. It's always, hey, do you know of anybody who's looking right now? And also make sure to join our talent community because anything can happen at any time. We know a lot of layoffs are happening, or maybe you just come in one day and you're like, you know what, I think I'm ready to look for a new company. That's why joining a talent community, early on is the best thing to do. So I run our talent community, send like our monthly emails to everybody. And basically that email talks about what we've been up to in the news. It talks about any new locations. It talks about what hot jobs we have, which could be the more niche one-off jobs, or it could be a lot of the, evergreen roles we're always trying to fill. And then also just talks about, what we've been doing. So it might be, hey, today is Nurses Week, or this is Nurses Week. We want to celebrate that. Here's some of our nursing staff. Are you looking to join a company who celebrates, their employees? Come join here. So that talent community is really great because, every month you're emailing people and eventually you're going to hit them at the right time of, you know what, I think now I'm ready to apply. Or, hey, I forgot about Boston Children's and now I have this new email. So talent communities are really just a great asset to have for any company. And you can source from within it and look within your talent community. You know that they're people who have shown interest in a way. It's kind of like looking at who follows you on LinkedIn or something. You know that they know the company, you know that they've shown interest. So it's kind of a little bit of a warmer outreach to start it off.
So, Jared, I was going to shift gears and ask Mikey a couple questions about AI, but before I do, anything on your end or anything you want to jump in on?
No, I think that's a great direction to go because I think when you're talking about some of the qualifications, especially for anything marketing or digital related or strategy related, anything related to especially the growth of organizations or brand, there's there's just a swirling right now going on of trying to understand and digest what is part of a skill set nowadays for any of those types of roles.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I worked at a veteran career fair the other day, and a lot of people were asking about AI. How do I get AI on my resume? And it's great to have on your resume. I've never had a hiring manager tell me we don't want somebody because they don't have AI. I haven't had a hiring manager say, can we find someone with AI? I don't think we're quite there yet in the market, but it's definitely a good plus in your resume. My biggest piece of advice of what to put on your resume, put in your background is metrics. Every job has some sort of customer service or sales or numbers. So keep track at every job. And on your resume, have metrics for things and process improvements. Show what you changed and helped in your company, how you reduce things, because every company wants somebody to come in and help them with processes there too. So that's the big thing. As far as AI goes, there's so many free certifications out there, free courses, free trainings. Definitely hop on board those and also get those on your resume, get those on your LinkedIn, because those are going to help as well. I think what I tell people, I'm not the first person to say this, but I think what I tell people is we're not going to be replaced by AI, but we're going to need to know AI and how to use it in our day to day, or else we're not going to get the job over somebody else who has AI. So, like I said, we're not there quite yet. Don't think it's a discouraging thing for your job or it will reject you, but definitely start learning it and how it can be applicable to your job. Because in the near future, those will be questions, I think, at companies about how you use it and how you're efficient with it.
And I think that's really insightful, Mikey. And obviously, if two equal candidates come to the table, one that's able to show relevant AI experience and how they're using some of the different AI tools to enhance their job and their team, that's only going to give them a leg up. That's only going to help. At this point, if someone shows reluctance to use AI, that certainly might be a yellow flag. Now, what about for your role? Are you using AI on a daily basis? Is it helping you, hurting you, or again, is it still not quite prime time yet for AI use in your role?
But yeah, so Boolean, when I started using Boolean at work, I started using it at home too. You can use that to find concert tickets and you can shopping and discounts. The same with AI. I use both things now in and out of work. So I use AI out of work for a lot of stuff, but then I also use it at work too. And I've learned what it works for and what it doesn't work for. So Boolean is a lot of creating long strings of, hey, show me a respiratory therapist at these 100 hospitals throughout New England. And a few years ago, you had to plug in all of those company names into an Excel sheet and concatenate and make these big Boolean strings. Now I can just say to ChatGPT, hey, show me a list of our 100 competitors. Great. Now put those in a search string that I can use on LinkedIn. Cool. What's another way to say respiratory therapist? What's another certification for respiratory therapists? So using it for that reduces a lot of your Boolean building, essentially, which has really been helpful. It's really good for competitive analysis and some stuff like that. But what I've learned is when it comes to like competitive analysis, you ask it for sources to make sure it's doing the right thing, and then you have to still go and visit that. So then you kind of learn, all right, maybe that's something I could just do on my own and skip the AI, like it can be good at giving you the info, but when it's stuff like that where you have to double check it, it's a little different.
Yeah, that with the AI wisdom on what's really a time saver versus what you should do on your own is really crucial now. So I would be remiss if I didn't dig into your background a little bit because, like you mentioned at the top of the program, you've done a lot of writing, you've done work in film. That's kind of your passion. And if I'm remembering correctly, you're still doing some of those things. And if I'm remembering correctly, you just released a book, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So the last 2 years, I wrote and published a few children's books, kind of about dogs and therapy dogs and how to behave in your house and how to succeed in kindergarten, which is so different than preschool. So I wrote those really fun picture books using my creative writing and my background because I used to work with kids a lot in like college, different forms. But then in December, I published a book of short horror stories as New England guys, obviously, I grew up with Stephen King and horror. I've been raised on horror. So at nighttime, when everybody goes to bed and I have my peace and quiet, I'm just always like writing and doing creative stuff. I run a website where I review concerts and movies. I make music. I don't know. I just do a lot of creative stuff, and that kind of helps me keep sane. But yeah, the horror book is out right now. It's called Coming Soon Short Horror Stories. It's kind of just about, movies I would like to see on the big screen one day that I wrote. Yeah, working on already version 2 of that, another set of horror stories, and working on a short film and just, yeah, always trying to be creative.
Mikey, anything else you want to share? But if so not looking at a job seeker per se, but looking at a young professional coming up in sourcing, coming up in recruiting, what advice would you have to even a younger you on what it takes to be successful?
Yeah, yeah. So sourcing, I didn't know what it was when I first interviewed, and trying to explain it to parents and family and friends is always so hard. So it's not something I knew about in college. You have HR, I think, in college, but you don't really have talent acquisition. And those are very different things. HR and TA, they're very different. So I guess here's what I would say. Here's how I put it. If you're more I'm pretty extroverted, but if you're more introverted and you want to have a job where you're researching and your head's down and you're compiling stuff and putting stuff together, like that's definitely the sourcing kind of role, in my opinion. Recruiting, if you're more the extroverted, you want to be talking to people all day and you want to be working with hiring managers and, things like that, that's more for a recruiter. So it kind of depends on like what side that you're looking for, what you're most interested in. But sourcing is something that's like super fun. It's so helpful. The tools you can use outside of work as well. So for somebody who wants to get into sourcing or is in sourcing, watch the webinars, go to the free conferences or paid if your company offers it. Learn from the other people out there. watch the videos. Sourcers are super nerdy and they love talking about sourcing. So many people don't know what it is. So, like, they don't ask, and then we don't have a lot to talk about. So, when we do have things to talk about, you'll find a lot of people on YouTube and stuff that are giving really cool ways of finding things and passionate things. So, it's a lot of like the hunt. It's a lot of finding things and challenges and things like that. So, yeah, I would say look at what else is out there, what people are doing. Yeah, practice a lot too in your free time. There's so much sourcing you can do to find people in the area to go play sports with, or a meetup group for musicians. There's so much you can use for sourcing purposes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mikey. What you just said is kind of inspiring. Like, hey, sourcing just isn't about making connections for work and building networks there, but you can build networks for your life and your community and your health and future. That's great advice. Thanks, Mikey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just echo that and say thanks for joining us and giving us kind of behind the scenes. It's always good to hear, regardless of whatever career stage anyone is in, of what it can take and just things to keep in mind. And that helps tremendously, regardless of the type of role and, like I said, leadership experience. So appreciate the time and love hearing about all the creative outlets and all the ways you have to be able to continue, even in addition to and related to what you do for work. So appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us
Yeah.
on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everyone.